The New York Jets have made a bunch of changes both in the front office and roster talent so far in the 2025 offseason, but how will that affect their draft? My name's Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and we've got another 3-round mock draft for you here for the New York Jets. Before we get into that, be sure to hit that subscribe button, tackle that bell, also leave a like and a comment, do all the YouTube stuff, and let us know your opinions. Ryan, let's pull this up here. So we did a full 3-round mock draft, and we ended up going with Armand Membou, tackle out of Missouri here. He's been a guy that's been flying up draft boards, tested really well, both at the combine and also too just on film. In general, but he's a guy I think that could be very interesting. And Ryan, want to hear your opinions on this as well. But if there is a area where I think the Jets could improve on the offensive line where they haven't really addressed is going to be that right tackle spot. That's what he
Yeah.
played in Missouri, and he even has the flexibility to kick inside. So I will say, looking at their offensive line, I mean, I think Olu really started to come on strong at the end of last year before he got hurt. John Simpson's playing well. Joe Tippmann, I think, is an up and coming good center. Elijah Vera Tucker, when healthy, is a really good right guard. So if Amon
Yeah.
Membu can kick in that right tackle spot, really start to solidify this offensive line, which has been a huge pain in the butt for this New York Jets team. Really help out Justin Fields, really help out Brees Hall in that backfield as well. So I think another key player that wasn't available, it was Ted McMillan. He ended up going to your Patriots at number 4. I think that's
Yeah.
another big option here. Maybe go Will Campbell also too for some more versatility. But Ryan, I want to throw it over to you here. What do you like about Armand Membou and what he would bring to this Jets offense?
Just athletically, he is now after his combine, kind of going back and rewatching him. There are some things I don't like, and he definitely has maybe some more warts than, let's say, like a Will Campbell in terms of like technique. But his ceiling is the highest I think of any offensive lineman in this class, and he's my offensive lineman one at this point. And so with him, he is a fantastic athlete. He's slightly undersized. He's not quite as short as we thought, but it's like 6'4" and a quarter, I think was his height. And then he has the 33 and 3/4 inch arms. So he meets the tackle threshold there. But his biggest thing is his foot speed is phenomenal. And for being a little bit shorter, he has such a dense, powerful frame that in the run game, he just like mauls dudes.
Yeah.
And so his biggest issue I think is in pass protection. He gets a little over his toes sometimes, and the big thing with him is like he doesn't need to do that. He's a good enough athlete. He can stay in front of almost anybody. And like they played Texas A&M, I think they played Tennessee, and he had good film against all of them. He would just get a little antsy at times and not trust his athleticism. And so I feel like if you get him in an NFL system and you let him get those reps where he could practice patience, I think that's going to be the best thing for him, and he'll be a solid right tackle for them for a while. And you look at the loss of Morgan Moses, I think there's a slot for him to go and fill right now. They signed Chukwuekorfor for, but he retired from the Patriots last year because he didn't know if he wanted to play football anymore. So that's definitely not a reliable option there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, well, and I think that's one of the things too when I watch Armand Membou, like my favorite offensive lineman is Josh Simmons in this class. He's just that leg injury is such a big hindrance on where he's going to go. If he had stayed healthy, I think your Patriots would be taking a 4th overall. But I see
Yeah.
a large, athletic left tackle that can move up the field. You talk about that foot speed, and Armand Membou, when watching him, reminds me of that as well, just on the right tackle side and just a little bit smaller height wise. And so
Yeah.
I think that'd be something where he would bring a lot of that athleticism to this Jets offensive line with the ability to kick inside. If things don't work out, he has that ability, I think, to kick into guard, and that's where it is weird. Just like uh, there's like this mock draft that we did where Armand Membou went ahead of Will Campbell because I feel like Will Campbell technically is like still one of the best offensive linemen in this class, but at the same time though too, Will Campbell is almost for sure going to be a guard in the
Yeah.
NFL. Well, Amar Membou does have that more versatility, so to say. Not saying Will Campbell can't be a tackle, but as you talked about, just those tackle measurements that are pretty consistent throughout, especially when it comes to arm
Yeah.
length. Will Campbell doesn't have that. Armand Membou does. So it's going to be interesting to see how they fall. I could absolutely see Will Campbell going here as well. But let's move on though now to the Second round pick for the New York Jets, Darius Alexander, defensive tackle out of Toledo. He's been a guy that's been rising a bunch also. But the Jets, they have Quinton Williams, obviously, but a lot of people have been mocking like Mason Graham to the Jets in the first round here, or just some other defensive tackle that can really go alongside Quinton Williams and this kind of very dynamic defensive line that they have, especially too with up and coming guys and Will Johnson. I say up and coming. Not Will Johnson, Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah.
I'd say up and coming. They've both been in the league for a couple years and have had good careers so far. So I think you go and get Darius Alexander here. I think that really help out at this defensive line, really rush 4, and then you can drop back 7, really get a very fun defensive scheming setup for this Jets team. Ryan, what do you
Yeah.
like about Darius Alexander and what he can bring to
So
the Jets?
he's one of the highest graded defensive tackles in this draft class, and he did play at Toledo, so there is some take a grain of salt with that. But he went down to the Senior Bowl. He showed out. He showed that he has the physicality and the strength to really play at this level. And he is a very good penetrating defensive tackle. He's stout against the run. I just feel like he would be a really good complement to Quinnen Williams and just the pressure that both of these guys can create. I think it is really intriguing. And you look at the run stuffing ability. That was something I think the Jets have slightly struggled with over the past couple seasons, is they've been a pretty porous run defense in spurts. And so I think that Darius Alexander could come in and really fill that in. I think you look at what Aaron Glenn likes to do. He likes to have those Levi Onwuzurike's and the Aleem McNeils that can go and really get upfield. And I feel like Darius Alexander can go and do that. So I like the fit here. I do think you look at what they are lacking right now. So you have Garrett Wilson, who's a great wide receiver. And I think they would love to have a Devontae Adams replacement and then get that true outside wide receiver. I feel like that's going to be the best complement. So Jaden Higgins was on the board at this point. We did pass on him. Mason Taylor, they have not had a tight end there for a while. I know they have who is it Jeremy Ruckert, the kid from Ohio State? Yeah. So he's there. You could go invest in a Mason Taylor, and another defensive tackle option be Omar Norman Lott, although he's going to be a little bit more of like a pass rushing defensive tackle. So I think this is a really good fit here for the Jets. I know both picks so far have been on the trenches, so let's get some skill position players going there. So we went, and at this point, there weren't a lot of like larger X receivers that we really liked, but one guy that we were really high on was Tai Felton, the wide receiver from Maryland. Was in top 5 in wide receivers in this draft class and forced missed tackles. He has a very low drop percentage, very polished wide receiver in terms of route running. And so it's a lot of speed, and him and Garrett Wilson might have a little bit of overlap in terms of skill set. But I think if you can get both of those guys on the field together, that would just be so difficult for teams to be able to cover both of these guys. And I think this is a really good value spot here for Tai Felton.
Yeah, no, I could just imagine Garrett Wilson on one side, Tai Felton on the other, and just defenses are like, we kind of like unless we have a lockdown corner, like it's fun watching Christian Gonzalez like versus Garrett Wilson, like that's fun. But then at the same time though too, be like, so you get that set up if you're fortunate enough to have that kind of cornerback. But then like you got to hope that your CB2 is also a good guy that can lock down their corner, because I could see Tai Felton really progressing and taking off here. I also think then too with Justin Fields. We have seen him develop overall, and even his last year in Chicago was pretty good overall. And then like he did a serviceable job during his time at Pittsburgh when he started there the first half of the year. And so I think you come in though, you're going to want to have him get another weapon that he can rely on, because if Garrett Wilson's having a bad day, or if he is going up against Christian Gonzalez and it's just tougher, you're going to want to have another safety blanket to go to. I think Tai Felton can be that guy. And so ideally, yeah, like it'd be great if you had a Jaden Higgins, who is definitely a bigger X receiver, like different than Garrett Wilson. But I think if you have 2 Garrett Wilsons on your team, I also think that that's acceptable as well.
Yeah. And I will say, Tai Felton and Garrett Wilson in terms of play style are similar. I think Garrett Wilson is clearly the much better player. It's just what Tai Felton brings, I think, would be really hard for both defenses to cover. So they could go a different route. They did release CJ Mosley. I know Jeffrey Bossa is not nearly the size of CJ Mosley. He's like 6'2", 230, I think. And so CJ Mosley is much bigger, but I think that would be interesting. Carson Swessinger is much more closely sized to CJ Mosley. But two linebackers there, just depending on which one fits your fancy. And then Gunnar Helm there, the tight end from Texas, who didn't test super well athletically, but historically, like, I don't think that truly matters in terms of like success. Like Mark Andrews did not test out super great at the combine, and he's one of the best tight ends in the league right now. So I feel like Gunnar Helm, he could be another interesting option there at tight end if the Jets want to go that route. So, I mean, all in all, for the Jets, the one thing I think they just definitely still needed to improve on the trenches. Losing Morgan Moses, I was pretty confident in that offensive line if they were able to keep Morgan Moses. But you go substitute him for Armand Membou, feel relatively similar about it. And then you help solidify that defensive interior there and add a skill position player. And so I feel like that sets themselves up well on day 3. Just take best player available, take some risks on some guys, and really try to get this team back on track in 2025.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No, it's gonna be interesting to see just with this whole new regime that's going on with New York, just what 2025 is going to be like. I feel like we're back to the very low expectation stage for the Jets.
yeah, that kind of happens though. They have a new head coach, new general manager. Like they're getting old guys out and bringing in their own guys, and so I feel like there is some expected rough patches here in the beginning, but hopefully by the end of this year and going into 2026, there'll be some continuity and some good things to build off of. The big thing is just what are they going to do at quarterback? Because Justin Fields, he signed the 2-year deal. We'll see if that carries over and if they actually complete that deal and he can show that he's a potential franchise quarterback, or if they're going to be drafting at the top of the 2026 draft and maybe looking for a quarterback. So we'll just have to wait and see how 2025 plays out. Let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you thought of this Jets 3-round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? Other than that, we'll see you guys next time.